Hey, buddy. This is Teaching to the Test Pattern, and I'm your host, Tom White. Today, we're going to go through one of the hardest things for a lot of school programs to get under control, live event audio. It's something that I struggle with, not because I don't know how important it is or how easy it is, but because simply I get lazy when it comes to show day. I tend to worry more about graphics and video and angles and that kind of stuff and slack off when it comes to audio. But before we get started, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor, SchoolVideoNews.com. SchoolVideoNews.com is your place to learn a ton about video production in the school setting. You can go there right now and read about some of the great equipment that I'm going to be mentioning in this episode, as well as some articles about parabolic mics and audio at sporting events from my buddy Paul Terpstra at Clover Products. Right now on the front page is part 4 of his series on miking sporting events. He talks about miking indoor sports, and it's super awesome. So go make sure you check that out today at SchoolVideoNews.com. So let's get into the meat of today's show. I'm going to talk about 2 different approaches on today's show. We're going to talk about the audio that viewers or listeners hear, as well as the audio that they don't and shouldn't hear. Let's talk with the one you probably care about most, what the viewers hear. So let me give you some background on my background. Prior to teaching, I was a marketing online content director for what is now iHeartRadio. I started messing with audio equipment when I was just a kid. I knew I had a mind for audio when I was about 10, and my dad got a brand new 6-disc CD changer and didn't have a way to play it. I found his old 8-track player, noticed that it too had the little red hole and the little white hole, and just like his CD changer. So I turned that into being a roadie for radio stations. I handled live broadcast audio for remote broadcasts for years, including some time working with the Braves Radio Network while I was in Atlanta. So without sounding cocky, I know remote broadcast audio, but I'm by no means an expert. So if you need someone that's turn and burn and can get it done and get you audio in a hurry at a live event, I'm your guy. It's what I do. So with that behind us, let's dig in. And while I know we all want that broadcast quality that we see at ESPN, and it makes your viewer feel like you're in the game, you're probably not at that point. So let's just start with the basics and work our way up. First and most important audio source, in my opinion, is a simple ambient microphone. Don't use the internal mic on the camera, but instead an inexpensive shotgun mic, $50 to $100, maybe $200 from Rode or Audio-Technica or any of those guys. Put that on top of the camera. That's all you need. It'll get what you need. It will get your audio into the camera that's not the internal microphone. I don't use the internal mic. Shotguns are going to sound better. You're going to get better audio, and you're not going to get your camera operator giving his thoughts about the head coach. I actually had that issue a couple of years ago. Not a lot of fun. Went to a meeting. It ended up okay, but still not a lot of fun. The shotgun gets you to focus your audio wherever your camera's pointing. So it's pretty important that, if there's action on the court, you can pick it up. You're going to get some of the crowd. You're going to get the players' shoes squeaking. You're going to get whistles and, of course, the buzzer. So it's a good start. To go beyond that, though, you're going to need an audio mixer. This can be a $50 purchase. There's a ton of options. You basically need something that you can take your shotgun audio as well as an additional microphone or 2. You're also going to need to be able to monitor the audio. When you're adding different microphones, they're all going to sound different, so you need to mix that. So you're going to need headphone jacks. There are a lot of mic mixers out there that are pretty expensive that are already in the education space. Go dig around in the closet and see if you can find one. When I started at the radio station, we were using Mackie products. A 1202 VLZ was one we went to. It was a great option. It had auxiliaries out that we could do some different things with that we'll talk about in just a minute. But it allowed us to mix more mics than we would ever need, as well as mix headphones for our talent. So right now I'm using the Sportscaster from Henry Engineering. I'll dive into that a lot more in just a little bit. So once you have a mixer and you need that other microphone, you need someone to talk into it. My suggestion is, if you don't have kids who are eager, reach out to some freelance guys and see if any of those guys are willing to donate their time for the reps. You guys, as high schools, have a ton of opportunities for people who are looking to get into the industry to go out and get their reps. So reach out to those guys. If not, find parents, find boosters, find former players. Just find somebody who's a little bit knowledgeable about the sport and can carry a good thought. So what kind of microphone should you get for your talent? My suggestion is always a headset mic for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is it's one less thing on the table. If you have good air talent, your table is going to be covered in papers, laptops, pens, notes, folders, all kinds of stuff. So it's one less thing on the table. Also, you don't have to worry about them looking away from the microphone. If it's attached to their head, it's going to go where they go. So wherever they talk, it's going to be there. I use the Audio-Technica. It's the BPHS-1. It's been a great microphone. It's been super durable. They've done hundreds of events with no problems, and they're just rock solid. So that's my suggestion. It's a couple $100, but it's well worth it. Unlike, if you buy a stick mic, you buy a $100 SM58, you still got to buy cables, you still got to do all that. Headset mics have all of those built in. So if you're going to have talent, they got to be able to hear themselves. They want to be able to hear themselves, even if it's one person. Right now, as I record this, I have a headset on so I can hear myself. But if it's more than one person, you definitely need a way to mix audio to get that to them. So the 1202, the 1402s from Mackie, those guys will allow you to do independent mixes. You can look at different aux outs on a variety of mixers to get the right mix. But you want to try to be able to mix to where each person who's wearing a headset can hear exactly what they want to hear. For example, I have a play-by-play guy who wants to hear himself little, but his partner a lot. So you just kind of have to be able to do that. And keep your ambient mic, if for no other reason. When your talent mutes their mics, you don't want the silence on the air. So keep that in mind. You're going to have your ambient mic. But once you have that and you're on talent or in your air talent, the world is yours. You can do a ton of stuff. You can put mics in every crevice and corner of the building and just have somebody there who can mix it. So just keep that going. You can do that all day long. That'd be super cool. But if you start there, you're going to miss some of the foundational stuff. So I'm going to get a little advanced now. I mentioned a minute ago about being able to talk off air. That's essential for, I'm doing air quotes, for a professional broadcast. You want to be able to talk to your talent off air. So you want to be able to feed them stats or feed them, info about a commercial that's coming up or a graphic that's coming up. You want to be able to do that. And if your hope is to do big multi-camera broadcasts with talent and commercials and graphics and all of those things, you have to have some kind of backline communication. I would spend more money on that before I bought more cameras. So if you're moving to 2 cameras and 2 talent, then I would buy the back end communication before I bought 2 more cameras so that you had a 4-camera shoot and you could do baselines and reverses and all that stuff. I'll go ahead and tell you that finding audio mixers with backline communication is not going to be inexpensive. You're going to have to come off a little bit with that. So that's why I say don't buy the extra 2 cameras, buy a good unit. For about a year and a half now, I've been using the Henry Engineering Sportscaster. And I have to be honest and tell you, A, that I'm not paid by Henry, but I'm more than partial to this piece of equipment. Hank and I spoke about 3 years ago, and he said he's got an idea that could revolutionize audio for schools. And I got to experience the whole process of design, testing, deployment, the whole thing for the Sportscaster. The mics and headphone outs work really great with the headsets that we use because he actually used one of my headsets to test those things. So super cool piece of equipment. It's a 6-channel audio mixer, but it's so much more than that. It has a communication. It has a way to communicate offline built in. It can take in 6 channels of audio. So if you have 3 air talent and then you have a sideline reporter and 2 ambient mics, you're good. You have all the mics you would ever need for 90% of your broadcasts. But it also allows for offline communication to your talent, maybe a sideline reporter and your camera operators. The talent would use sports pods. They're so awesome. So you run an Ethernet cable from the Sportscaster to the Sports Pod. That Ethernet cable powers the Sports Pod as well as handles your audio back and forth or back from the Sportscaster. We'll get into that in a minute. So you run an Ethernet cable and an XLR cable, and that's how you get audio to and from for a Sports Pod. But if you add a second Sports Pod, you just daisy chain the Ethernet cable and run an XLR cable. Well, you can do that up to 3 sports pods. So you could have 3 talent at a table or in a booth, and only run 4 cables, which is amazing and super awesome. Sports pods allow the talent to mute their mics. It's got a cough button. It allows them to mix their own mix, so they can add more of themselves, take themselves out, add the producer or their partner back in, all that stuff. It allows them to do all of that on their own. You don't have to worry about it. But the power of the sportscaster comes from the backline communication. The producer can talk to the talent, the field reporter, and all of those offline through just this one device. The field reporter and the camera operators are going to have a different headphone amp or wireless monitor system, but that's for later. Right now, we're just talking about the air talent. For the talent, they can tell them what graphics are coming. They can tell them, stats. They can feed them when the commercial is starting or ending, or if they're doing an interview, they can cue them in and out. We've had times where a producer basically told the talent that their job is to talk, and if they don't talk, they won't have a job. So definitely check that out. The link will be in the description for this podcast. So we talked about microphones. We talked about mixing. We talked about offline communication. The last element is just finding somebody who can actually hear. That's key. Someone who can actually hear, who can hear the difference between good mixed audio between 2 people and then adding in the ambient and then just making it all kind of flow so that if, the talent stops talking, they can push the ambient a little bit and pull the talent, and let the talent kind of breathe a minute. So you got to find that person. That person's tough to find. That's not somebody that you can just throw at it. I made the mistake for a long time. The kids who weren't good at switching or who weren't good at camera ops or who I just didn't know, I would throw on audio and go, hey, make this sound good. So there were shows where the balance was off. But at the end of the day, it's a high school program. People are going to learn from it, and they're going to hopefully expect that. But if you're going to get to the quality that you hope you want, you got to have to find somebody who actually gets it and understands. So I know I went through a ton on today's show, but I'm going to put the links to the equipment down in the description so you can go see what I'm talking about and see how to get started with those things. But the most important thing now is to know what you need, and it's to watch sports shows and listen to how they mix. Close your eyes and actually try to visualize what they're saying or what the camera's showing. Outside of that, just go try. Start with one mic, see how it improves. Add in a play-by-play person, add in a color analyst, add in some ambient mics, add in a sideline reporter, and really just start simple. So I hope it helps you get to where you want to go with your live broadcast. And remember, just keep it simple, keep making awesome, and thank you for listening.